Hey, what's up guys? Stupid Hippie here, and it's time for my very first debate analysis video. So basically, the point of these videos are going to be me going online and recounting some of the craziest, most entertaining, or most informative debates or arguments I've had with people online. And yeah, let's get right into the very first one. This one is definitely not on the informative side, at least not from the perspective of my, I guess, opponent here, who says some pretty crazy things. So let's get right into it. Let's start out with the article itself. The article is a K2 News article, and K2 News is a local news station local to Oregon. And me being a stupid hippie, of course, I like Oregon, and I follow Oregonian news, so along with many other states, but that's besides the point. And it was telling a pretty awful story about a Mexican drug cartel ambush that killed, I believe it was close to 20 police officers. Large group of police officers were ambushed in some city in Mexico, I believe northern Mexico, near the border. And yeah, they were all killed. And that just kind of goes to show how powerful the cartel is in Mexico right now. So I was coming from this from a perspective of empathy for the Mexican people. It just, to me, this shows how dangerous it is there right now, and it shows that the people who are fleeing to America genuinely need help to escape these dangerous cartel. It's not like they are, just these lazy welfare leeches. But that is not the perspective that everyone came from. A lot of people were coming from the perspective of fear and don't let these terrible cartel immigrants into our country, even though the immigrants are the ones fleeing the cartel, not the cartel themselves. It makes no sense to me that the people with all the power would move to America, where they have no power. It only makes sense that it's the people who have no power who are trying to come to America to regain some of the power that they don't have in their own country. So this is what I originally commented. Quote, and people wonder why illegal immigrants want to escape an area practically governed by the drug cartel, with my signature facepalm emoji. And there were some people who did not agree with this analysis at all. And I'm not going to use his name, I'll just use his initials. S.A. He says this: no, we don't. We wonder why they don't rise up and overturn the corrupt drug cartels. Hint, because the Democrats keep telling them to come to America and we'll take care of you as long as you vote for us. Right, of course, because Nancy Pelosi, comfy little Nancy Pelosi, is going to the northern cities of Mexico. She's talking to the farmers, she's talking to the people living in the slums who are most affected by the drug cartels, and she's saying, in her perfectly fluent Spanish that we all know she can speak, she's telling them, yes, come to America, we'll take care of you. Just vote for us and everything will be better. Don't fight these drug cartels that you definitely have the power to fight off, even though you don't have weapons or money to buy weapons or access to weapons or anything. But yeah, you can definitely fight off these cartel, but don't, because just come to America and we'll take care of you. That's how this works. Right, of course, SA, of course. And SA, like I said, are his initials. I'm not making a Spanish slur joke, even though that would be kind of funny. So I respond rather snarkily with, I'm sorry, man, but this is one of the dumbest things I've ever heard, to be honest. You want impoverished third world farmers and blue collar workers to overthrow a heavily armed cartel that have more power than the government does in some areas? What's next? You want hillbillies in Appalachia to take over the mafia? And I spam 3 of those signature facepalm emojis, because it's just really ridiculous. Like, not only the idea that the Democrats are brainwashing the Mexican people to not fight off the cartel and to just come to America in hordes, and I know that's not necessarily what he's saying, but it's just a really bad take. These people obviously don't have any power. They don't have, like I said, don't have weapons, don't have access to weapons. If they were to try to get weapons, it would likely be through the cartel. And if everyone just started buying weapons in mass, the cartel would probably notice that something was up. Then we have WW. He comes in on my side, actually, and even though his grammar is not the best, I will try to read it as if it was. He says, because they have military hardware, and common people have what? Farming implements? And then he continues on with, also, I want you to get all your buddies together with whatever you can find in your garden shed and go to California and wipe out the gangs there. And that's honestly a pretty good metaphor, because, like, Sure, maybe SA has some weapons, which I'm assuming the people living in rural parts of Mexico would not have. However, um, even if they did have some weapons, wiping out this powerful gang, which is, like I said, not even as powerful as the cartel is practically stronger than the government in Mexico, whereas I wouldn't say that Crips or Bloods are more powerful than the American government anywhere in the world. But even with this metaphor, it shows how like ridiculous that this request of essays is. It obviously shows that he really doesn't understand or empathize or sympathize with any of the troubles and struggles of the average Mexican living in an area like this, with all the heavy crime and, like I said, infestation of cartel that, work as the government in some areas. So, now we have a new arrival, PO. And PO is very interesting because it's really hard to understand what he is trying to say, but let's just read it. He says, why? So it can happen here? I have no idea what it is, but I digress. We've already had enough with Cali's ideas and infecting Washington, Oregon, Texas, Colorado, ... etc. Monkey, 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 angry eye roll. What is he talking about? What ideas are the Calis infecting? And I don't even know what is it? Is he thinking that bringing the immigrants over here would cause this mass ambush of American policemen by Mexican drug cartels in America? Because, like I said, the people fleeing Mexico are the ones wanting to get away from the crime. Generally speaking, of course, there are some criminals coming through the border. There are criminals everywhere in the world. There are criminals coming from everywhere to everywhere. But statistically speaking, illegal and legal immigrants, regardless of where they come from, commit less crimes per capita in America than native-born citizens, so that idea is rather stupid in the first place. In fact, if you were, statistically speaking, to add more of a population of illegals to a city, it would bring down the crime rate, as I will show in the statistics that I hopefully learn how to put up on screen right now. Okay, so let's move on. I reply to to PO here. So I respond with, why would the violent cartel move over to the US? They have no power here, and they practically rule over many areas of northern Mexico. They would not want to move away from their power. Nobody would. The vast majority of illegal or legal Hispanic immigrants are just seeking a better life. In fact, they commit less crime than the average native-born American. The incarceration rate for native-born Americans is 1.53%, compared to 0.53% for illegal immigrants and 0.47% for legal immigrants, according to a study from Cato Institution. So, I give PO the facts. I tell him the study and the statistic, and his response is rather interesting. I don't know what he means by this, but I guess thank you? He says, I forgive you. Okay, I guess I'll check that off the list. I have PO's forgiveness. Thanks, guy. Anyways, let's keep going. I say confusedly, for what? And that's it. He never responds again. It's a mystery that I don't think will ever be solved, unfortunately. But yeah, I got his forgiveness for something. Hopefully, in an ideal world, he forgives me for wanting immigrants to come into America, because this study has now changed his worldview, and now he wants immigrants to come to America. However, I realize that is very likely not the case. Not that I really understand what the case is, but anyways, SA is back. It's been a long time. I think at this point it's been over a day since SA had replied, but he replied, and he said this. Farmers grabbed their muskets and waged war against the most powerful military on the planet. The odds were impossible, yet they won. They had help from the outside, just like anyone who declared war on the cartels would, but they don't do that. They run from their problems to the USA, either legally or illegally, and all that's left are the corrupt, who thrive on through their violent stranglehold on power, thus perpetuating this never-ending cycle of corruption. Okay, I kind of see where he's getting at with the metaphor between the American Revolution and the drug cartels in Mexico, except there's one major difference. There's actually a lot of differences, but there's one that I'll talk about. Weapon discrepancy and availability and training. Ugh, I couldn't only stick it to one. Let's do all three. So, first of all, weapon discrepancy. Back in the 1770s, your range of weapons wasn't that big. You either had a farmer with a crappy musket, or with a crappy musket that took a minute to reload, then had terrible sight, had terrible aim. You shot it, it was loud, it was unreliable, and then you waited a long time, you reloaded it, and then you shot it again. That's what the farmer had. What did the British military have? The same thing, except maybe a little more accurate and a little more reliable. Now we have huge discrepancy with weapons. The cartels literally have trucks with giant machine guns on the back of them. Meanwhile, the farmers would have the money for what? A pistol? An AK-47? An AR-15? A basic, small assault weapon, if they could even get their hands on assault weapons, because I'm pretty sure the cartels would be the ones selling them all the assault weapons, which they wouldn't do in bulk. So it's really a silly comparison. Second of all, the farmers in the Revolutionary War became militias who were trained by the colonial army. They became soldiers. They received actual training. They weren't just random farmers who decided to get together and start attacking the most powerful army in the world at the time. And the third one I kind of touched up on already, but it's availability. The only way that these people in Mexico could get weapons that they could attack the cartels with would be through the cartels. Whereas back in the day, everyone had a rifle, whether it's for hunting or for literally anything. Everyone back then pretty much had a weapon, and most of them were rifles that were comparable to the rifles that the army had. So the availability to weapons back then is just incomparable to what it is today for the Hispanic people living in Mexico. I think that's pretty much what I said in my response, but let's just read it anyways. I said, name one time that has happened, because it's a huge difference between the American Revolutionary War, in which American militia, many of which used to be farmers, became soldiers and were armed and trained by American colonies, unlike Mexican citizens who have no formal training nor access to weaponry. Not to mention, that was the 1770s, before the invention of machine guns, powerful bombs, and semi-automatic weapons that could wipe out a hypothetical Mexican farmer army in minutes. Where are they supposed to get weapons? They're too broke to afford them, and they're definitely not going to be able to start planning a revolution before the cartel finds out and massacres them. You obviously have zero understanding of history or the situation in Mexico. I hate to be rude, but you're making yourself look more foolish and naive with each response. And, let's look around here. Oh yeah, he didn't respond after that. So, yeah, that was the whole thing. Basically, essay has no idea what he's talking about. Sorry, maybe a little harsh, maybe a little rude, but it's true. People need to understand that the people coming from Mexico are not the criminals. Statistically speaking, at least. Like I said, they commit less crime than American citizens do, on average. The people coming through the border are mostly people just like you watching. Except, I would assume they probably are a lot more poor than you, probably in a lot more danger than you, but I digress. They're people just like you with families. A lot of them are the parents of these families, and they care and they love these families that they have. Of course they do, and they don't want them to be raised in a life of danger. A lot of adults are recruited by the cartel if they are healthy and male and strong or whatever it is, and if they refuse to join the cartel, there could be serious repercussions and they could really be putting their family in danger. So even the cartels themselves, most of them don't really want to be a part of it. They either do it because they know it's the safest way to go, they do it because they want the power, and yeah, a lot of them are corrupt, want money and want the drugs and want, all the violence that comes along with being a member of the cartel. But the people who are fleeing the cartel are not the people we should be hating on, not the people we should be fear-mongering against. These are the people we should be helping. Because the more we help Mexico with this situation, the less of a stranglehold the cartel will have on Mexico, and therefore, the less illegal immigrants will have to flee to Mexico in the first place. So, what do we do really to kneecap the cartel's power, in my opinion? Well, definitely Mexican farmer armies. If we get enough, I'm kidding. The way we kneecap the Mexican cartel is by legalizing drugs, or at least decriminalizing them. because the reason that they have all this power is because they're the only source of these things, of these drugs that people want. And while I'm kind of indifferent on the whole idea of legalization of all drugs, including hard substances, I definitely think it's time that we decriminalize them. People who do drugs are not criminals. The only thing that makes them criminals is the fact that they have fallen into an addiction. I don't think that's a crime. I think it's bad. I think it's unhealthy. I think it should be helped, but not through a jail sentence. It should be helped through rehabilitation. And with substances like marijuana, I think that should have been legal decades ago. It's only not because tobacco products and the tobacco industry would take a massive hit to their budget, and they have their hands deep into the pockets of politicians. But with the cartels and cocaine, I'm not going to act like I know everything about cocaine or other hard substances, but I do know that decriminalization in Mexico would really hurt the cartels. And full legalization, which like I said, I'm a little indifferent about, but full legalization where all drugs, even hard drugs, are regulated and sold through prescriptions, through the government, would completely take away the cartel's entire power, because no one's going to want to buy from the violent and scary and shady cartel when they can just go to a building, to a store, buy what they need, receive rehabilitation if they need it, if they want it, and go on with their merry day. So, to recap, basically, don't villainize the people coming through the border. If they are criminals and they commit crimes within America, sure, I'm okay with sending them back to where they came from. However, if they're just working, if they're just looking for a better life, that is not punishable. Not at all punishable. At least, I don't think so. So, please, try to keep an open mind, and don't be like SA here, or PO. Not that I really know what PO is talking about, but just don't be like it. Be like, that other guy, what was his name? The WW guy. And so that's the video. I hope it was a little informative. I hope that you learned something. I hope you were entertained. And I really hope those Mexican farmers can get their act together, stop listening to the Democrats and Nancy Pelosi, and kill the drug cartel. What are you doing? What?